but so much to talk about with what we've seen in this game as we welcome in Frank Leboeuf and Gabriele Marcotti as well. We have to start where the game ended, Frank, and what we saw there. For you, what would your decision have been? Because it was given in the end as a foul in Szczesny's favour.
Well, that would have been for me a penalty, 100%. I mean, I think I agree with Shaka in the fact that the striker doesn't touch the ball and the Bruges player doesn't touch the ball, and Szczesny tried to compensate his mistake and goes to the contact and touches the player's knee just to prove that there is a contact. But he how do you say? He gives the contact. And he pushes the referee to say, oh, there is a contact. But the contact comes from him. So therefore, for me, no penalty. 100% no penalty. It should have been a goal. And I'm sorry, that ref, we know him. He's bad, very bad. And today he has proven it.
Ali.
So no foul, I think is what Frank is trying to say. No foul. What I would say is that if I'm going to take the position of Szczesny, who seemed to be the only person in the stadium that felt it was a foul right away. He calmly was saying, it's a foul. Why are we concerned all about this? It's going to be a foul. Don't worry about it. Go take a look at it. It's a foul. I think what Szczesny would argue is that he has the right to be able to put his leg down when he's about to turn. And in the sliding challenge of Vertman does not allow that to happen and does make contact with Szczesny. Now, the sliding challenge doesn't make contact with the ball, seems to make somewhat of a contact with Szczesny, and I suppose that's where the foul is given. I can understand the position that Shaka has taken. I can understand the position that Frank has taken. And if I had been Vertman doing the same thing, I probably would have been frustrated that that was given as a foul. I would suggest that if you don't give the right to the goalkeeper, in this case Szczesny, to be able to put his leg down so that then he can go and turn and find the ball, then I think if you didn't touch the ball and you made it a sliding challenge, you committed to the sliding challenge, I would say borderline, but just enough for a foul.
Check.
But did you like the explanation at least?
No, the explanation was great.
Hey.
The issue around that explanation is, a few moments earlier, we had a similar exchange between Balde and Forbes, where Balde gets a position, Forbes is trying to continue and running into the ball, and Forbes initiates the contact. And again, the referee gives a penalty, has a look at the monitor, overturns that. So if you see that as Forbes initiating the contact, and therefore that being no penalty, you overturn that penalty, then later on in the 93rd minute or whatever it is, I see it the same, that Szczesny is the one who initiated the contact. Vertman just slides in to make a block, and Szczesny initiates the contact. What Vertman does, he doesn't touch a man. Granted, he doesn't touch the ball. He's comfortably far enough away, but Szczesny comes down on top of him. So for me, it's the same situation, albeit reversed. If you overturn the penalty earlier, you have to give the goal later on.
The slightest of differences, Shaq, is that Vertman does commit to a challenge and does give an actual sliding motion towards Szczesny, whereas in the case of Alejandro Balde, he's just standing still and Forbes kicks him. That, I think, is where you can draw a difference. And your parallel, while it's an engaging argument, I don't think they're the same situation.
Let's see if Gabriele Marcotti wants to weigh in on what he thinks.
You know what? I was 100% certain that it was a penalty. But then I heard Ali's explanation, and he's so eloquent. I now want to hire him to represent me next time I'm in court. Because he's managed to plant a seed of doubt in my mind. That's why I would not make a good referee.
Okay. However, what we must talk about...
Thank you, Your Honor.
Well done, Ali. Well done, Ali. It was another shambolic defensive showing, Frank, from Barcelona.
Oh, yeah, it was. I mean, the 3 goals come from the high line, and we've been talking about that, for a year and a half now, and we said sometimes they're going to be punished. And this year, they have been punished a lot. But for Hansi Flick, it doesn't seem to be a problem, because he doesn't try to cope with the situation and maybe try to correct that situation, and he carries on, and he's being stubborn, and you cannot be punished that way every time, because people they start to know, as Ali said, you know, you don't even need a perfect ball in the space. You just need to put the ball in the space, and the people at front have to go, and they're going to get the ball because nobody is there to cover, and they're going to be in front of Szczęsny in an easy way. That's not possible anymore. At that level, you have to have, again, as I always say, a second option. You can try that, but when it doesn't work, when you've been trapped once, you have to change your mind, you have to change your tactic. But the coach doesn't.
We were all watching it together in the green room. We were actually laughing at times, almost like watching through our hands like this at certain points with Barcelona, because at what point is it going to be too much that Flick continues to set his side up like this?
Well, to call this bad defending would be an insult to bad defending. I think it was after the Sevilla game where we mentioned that you could make a video just out of that match as to how not to defend. Well, over the last month to 6 weeks, actually, Barcelona now, you can put together a compilation package, the greatest hits of how not to defend. And Barcelona has touched upon all of them. To Frank's point, it's one thing that you're defending poorly, that you maybe do it one game, that you maybe do it 2 games, and maybe it goes for 3 weeks, but that you haven't addressed it and it continues to happen. It's an insult to other teams. You're basically telling other teams, you know what, we don't think you're good enough, without pressure, to find a pass that all it has to do is to be over the top of our defenders or splitting the defenders that are 15 to 10 yards from each other. If a professional player who's playing at the Champions League level cannot play that ball consistently, he would be out of his job very soon. You know? That's how simple of a pass we're talking about. The first goal today, and Shaka mentioned it while we were doing the highlights, the run happens. And the player that has to complete this pass doesn't even have to split a line or split defenders. It's just a straight pass from here to there, and it's a 10-yard pass. That is a pass that you should be able to complete at 10 years old, consistently. If you are a high-level player, you should be able to complete that pass with your eyes closed. This is not even, I have to be creative in order to break this down. I don't have to be accurate with my pass in order to break this down. I just have to hit the ball into space 10 yards. I am confident, I am certain that everybody on this panel, everybody in the studio, and everybody who's with us, with Frank and Gab, can complete that pass. Everybody can complete
Even
that
Kane?
pass.
Yeah.
I said everybody in the studio. Hey, even my guy on the camera over there who's on his phone right now, he can complete that pass.
Abraman can, yeah.
There is no pressure on the ball. The space is right in front of you. All you have to do is just put that ball there, and it happens consistently and regularly.
If I can jump on that, you know, 2 things that I'm thinking about while Ali was talking. The fact that I was a former defender, and I knew every time the guy in front of me who had the ball, the opponent had the ball, and was looking away to know where to give the ball, I knew that I had to stop and make a little drop to make sure that there is no ball in the space. That's an automatic answer to him watching and knowing what he can do. You have to protect yourself. What I see from Barcelona, even if the guy looks like that, they go further. They go further up. That's absolutely insane. That's a real suicide. Now, having said that, I'm a defender. I'm Frank Leboeuf, lucky to play for Barcelona under Hansi Flick. How do I behave? I think I end up on the bench because I'm going to go to Hansi Flick and say, I'm sorry, I'm not playing the fool. I'm not playing like that. I'm not being ridiculous. So I'm sorry. Find me another club or put me on the bench because I don't want to play like that, because that doesn't serve me. Because you said you're insulting bad defending. You're insulting the players. The 4 players playing at the back, they are insulted by Hansi Flick tactic.
Here's the thing for me, right? We've spoken about Hansi Flick's high line all of last season and certainly to start this one. And the sentiment has always been you have to have pressure on the ball. If you want to play that high line, you have to have pressure on the ball because an average professional player can make that pass without there being pressure on the ball. But what you saw today, with that line being 5 yards away from the man in possession, even with pressure on the ball, because now the pass doesn't have to be measured. It doesn't have to thread the eye of a needle. All it has to be is forward. And somebody like Forbes running on with his pace is going to have an absolute field day. And in fact, Forbes, with his pace, had an absolute field day.
Let me ask you, who? Yeah, exactly. Carlos Forbes looked like he was a world beater. Like this guy, it's the second coming of every great player we've ever had in the history of mankind.
But to play the point be, even with pressure on the ball, even if Barcelona consistently got pressure on the passer, if you hold out a line that's 5 yards away from wherever that ball is, you are going to get exposed time and time again. So to have this high line, to not have pressure, I really do not understand what it is Hansi Flick is getting at, what he's trying to get out of this team. They are going to get hurt time and time again.
Does it hurt your soul to see defending like this?
Baresi would have done that.
No, I'll say this, right? Those who are old enough, they remember Rigosaki's Milan. They played a crazy high line, but when they did that, sometimes, they didn't do it the whole game. When they did that, they had forwards, big, fast forwards, who would run themselves into the ground, putting pressure on the ball, as Shaka just said. Right now, this version of Barcelona has Marcus Rashford, who's not that, and Lamine Yamal, who's not fit. So, frankly, it becomes doubly difficult to do that. And the other minor difference is that Milan side had Baresi and Costa Curta and Filippo Galli and Maldini and Mauro Tassotti, whereas these guys, tonight, you had Araujo, who's a guy who, they've been trying to move and is clearly not suited at all to play this. Eric Garcia, who, is an afterthought. Cubarsí was on the bench. And to Frank's point about defenders standing up to the coach, none of these defenders are good. None of them have the authority, other than perhaps Cubarsí, but then that guy's still a teenager. So, who's Cubarsí to stand up to Flick and say, hey, boss, should we go and do this a little bit different? I think there's a leadership issue there, and it goes back to what they decided to do over the summer. Oh, that little tiny amount of money that we have to spend, should we go and spend it on Marcus Rashford, or should we go and spend it on finding a replacement for Inigo Martinez, who maybe wasn't super quick and maybe isn't the second coming, but I thought played very well for long stretches for Barcelona and could read the play and could be a defensive leader and mitigate some of that high line. No, they said, oh no, we're fine. Yeah, give me Christensen, he's always hurt. Give me Araujo, even though we don't like him. Give me Eric Garcia, even though he's a dud. And give me Cubarsí, even though he's 18. We'll be fine with these guys. That is the cardinal error. That goes beyond Flick. That's on Deco. That's on the club.
Inigo Martinez, in his absence, in going to Saudi Arabia, has now become a combination of all the players that Gab just mentioned from Milan.
Yes. He is.
Quite frankly, no player has elevated his status by not being somewhere as much as Inigo Martinez has been. A guy who wasn't even supposed to start last season, but now every time that something happens like this, which happens every single week with Barcelona, it goes back to, well, they're missing the leadership with Inigo Martinez. They may be missing that, but they're missing a whole lot more too. And that lack of pressure, and we've already gone around in circles, but the inability of this team to get numbers around the ball in order to affect the decision-making process of the player on the ball, if you're not getting close enough, that is where all alarm bells should go off, whether you're Franco Baresi, whether you're Pau Cubarsí, whether you're Costa Curta, whether you are Ronald Araujo. Somebody's got to take a step back. And they never do it.
Meanwhile, Lamine Yamal, obviously we saw, as Gab just mentioned, not fully fit at the moment. Milan trips aside. Thank goodness for Hansi Flick, he was on the pitch tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've said this before, but what a special player Lamine Yamal is. I mean, in terms of changing a game, in terms of dragging a team back into a game, and just how sometimes it's playground stuff. You see some of the things we saw in the highlights, some we couldn't cover it all with Lamine Yamal. But he just makes his game look so easy. And then to the point where you go away from home, you score 3 goals, and yet still you really should have lost. You really should have had, at least you get a point. That has to be frustrating on any attacking force, especially one where a teenager is carrying it the way that he is. That's a hard shift for a young man. But again, what a talent. Thank goodness for him, because I'm not sure that there's anything else in this Barcelona setup that you can really feel good about.
We're beginning to see with more consistency the tendency of Lamine Yamal to not just stay on the right-hand side, on the wing, just right next to the sideline. He's actually taking more central positions. And we saw from playmaking positions his ability to find through balls. We saw the ball for Ferran Torres that should have been a goal. And we saw the combination that ends up in his goal is him starting in a more central position, taking more of an inside position where he can now combine with Fermin Lopez, goes on to score the goal. That tells me this is a player that is beginning to mature and to understand that, yeah, I can dominate out here, but I can also impact the game over there. The more he does that, his game becomes far more diverse. And in becoming more diverse, he becomes more dangerous. In becoming more dangerous, more difficult to stop.
A special player, Gab?
Yeah, no question. Special player, joy to watch. You just hope, the kind of groin injury that he's dealing with, you just hope, as a neutral, as somebody who loves seeing ridiculously talented players play, you just hope that he's getting the medical treatment and the sports science that's needed to make sure that we see him at his best later in the season and, of course, at the World Cup.
Yeah, we've got more La Liga action coming up this weekend as Barcelona will be back, and we'll see if their defensive showings will be back as they take on Celta at Balaidos on Sunday. All of these games available every single week on ESPN+.